Hi, I'm Erik Lustgarten, Senior Technical Account Manager at Apprenda, and today we're going to take a deeper look at how Apprenda deploys your custom-built applications. When we look at an Apprenda environment, the first thing that our customers do is set up the infrastructure that's actually going to run the platform. The model for Apprenda is to take pre-provisioned infrastructure, layer the Apprenda platform on top of it, to then create this cloud for custom-built applications. The first step is for your IT or operations team to configure and set up the infrastructure. That's done normally using our customers' infrastructure, tools, and workflows to provision machines, whether they're virtual or physical, to run the platform. You can run your custom OS images, use your antivirus and security policies, and then layer the Apprenda platform on top of that. Once the servers have been configured, we install the Apprenda platform, which creates its distributed application or peer-to-peer routing fabric. IT then goes through the Apprenda platform under the operations portal to configure the policies and resources that are going to be available for developers to deploy and manage their applications. Once the platform has been configured and set up by your IT or operations team, it's open for developers to start deploying your applications. Apprenda takes a couple of artifacts in order to deploy the application. We require the application itself, and then developers can provide additionally a deployment manifest file. This file allows developers to configure the application for consumption on the Apprenda platform, providing the different characteristics and information that Apprenda needs in order to properly deploy your application. These artifacts can come from your build server, one of our IDE integrations, or command line interfaces in order to make this a very seamless experience for the developer. Once the developer packages their application with the deployment manifest file, they upload that to Apprenda and kick off the deployment process. The first thing that Apprenda does once it receives your application is it scans it to make sure that it has the required files and it's architected or structured in the correct format. It then parses that deployment manifest file to start the configuration process behind the scenes that Apprenda needs in order to be able to properly deploy your application. Once the deployment process actually happens, Apprenda goes through a series of steps to determine where and how to actually run your application. Once we're ready to start the deployment process, the first thing that Apprenda does is filter out the infrastructure based on the operating system that the application requires. If your application needs to run on a Windows machine, then the Linux servers are automatically filtered out, and vice versa. After Apprenda goes through the filtering of the operating system, we go through what we call deployment policies. Now, this is part of what the operations team configured at the beginning. As part of configuring and setting up the platform, operations creates custom metadata that allows them to tag and provide Apprenda additional information as to how to deploy and consume these resources. For example, we might have out of all of these servers 2 that are only allowed to run sensitive information or applications that handle sensitive data. Maybe they're under a different data center, maybe they're in a special place in your data center that has stricter entrance or auditing controls. Operations provides all of that information to Apprenda when they're configuring the environment. Apprenda then goes through the deployment policies that the team created to start matching what the application requires and what the infrastructure underneath it supports. For example, in this deployment manifest, if the developer would have said that his or her application handles sensitive data, Apprenda knows that automatically maybe half of this infrastructure is only capable of running that sort of workload, which means that the other half is automatically filtered out. Once Apprenda goes through those deployment policies, we then go through something called Bootstrap Policies. What Bootstrap Policies allows you to do is it allows the operations team to place the application on a temporary location and run additional logic against that. Some examples of those Bootstrap policies that our customers have created are library scanning workflows, where we can check and make sure that only the specific libraries that are allowed to make it onto this environment are being packaged with the application. This is a great tool to enforce compliance and standardization and reduce risk when applications are making it to this environment. Other customers have used Bootstrap policies to integrate applications automatically into application performance monitoring tool used by the enterprise. Once Bootstrap policies are run, you also have the ability to create what we call extensions. Extensions are additional workflows that operations can set up to add steps to the deployment process of Apprenda. For example, almost all of our enterprise customers use an extension to check whether this application can be deployed in their production environment against a third-party system. This is a very good way to integrate with your change management solution to ensure that only the right applications are deployed to the environment when they're allowed to be deployed. Once all these checks and workflows happen, the platform is then ready to deploy the application to the selected infrastructure. What Apprenda does is, after the filtering process happened, let's say it picked this server as the deployment target of this application. We then take the application, and using the resource policies that the operations team created, we wrap around that application in a lightweight container using that policy as the boundary. What that allows you to do is ensure that the application gets deployed on the infrastructure, but only able to utilize the amount of resources that have been pre-allocated for that application. Once all of that process happens, we start up the container, we instantiate the application server that's going to be used to run that application, and then we wire all of those pieces together to give you at the end a URL so that you can access your application. This model of application deployment enables our customers to really hit on three important aspects when deploying Apprenda. The first one is because we natively use the same application servers that the application was written for, we're able to support existing and new applications seamlessly. There's no reconfiguration required to run your application on the latest and greatest server. You can utilize all of your existing infrastructure and then still get the benefits of running in this environment. It allows us to drive the density of the application of the servers themselves and pack more applications, reducing the overall cost of running your application portfolio. And lastly, it lets Apprenda easily integrate with your existing infrastructure, systems, and services without having to set up an isolated environment just to run the Apprenda platform. It lets all of your existing and new applications still communicate and leverage the systems that you currently have. It lets your IT and risk organizations monitor the infrastructure the same way that they've been doing it, running your antivirus, your security, and group policies to ensure a consistency across the environment, and in the end, reduce risk of running a platform like Apprenda. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you have a better understanding of what happens behind the scenes when an application is deployed on the platform. Hope to see you again for the next video.